Welcome to the South Florida Recruiting Report. Marcus Benjamin here, representing for On Three Rivals, South Florida Recruiting Reporter. And just wanted to give you some information about, of course, South Florida recruits. A lot of people think it's the best area in the country. So, this podcast serves to really kind of discuss those prospects that are looking into some of the biggest programs in the country to discuss some of the prospects that we've seen so far in this 2025 season. I've got Larry Blustein, who represents for Prep Red Zone South of Florida, to really kind of discuss it all. Thanks for joining me today, Larry.
Oh, not a problem, Marcus. Thanks for including us in the new podcast. I didn't even know we had blues, so I wore the colors anyway. So
Yeah.
just so we'd make you feel comfortable in the first go around. But yeah, appreciate it. Great spending time with you at all the games and talking about a lot of the recruits. People don't realize that it's like our homework. We get a chance to see a lot of these kids, and then we go to a lot of the games, and where other people who are doing recruiting don't, really see these players live like we do. It's a huge advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I are probably boots on the ground more than anyone else that really kind of looks at these kids. We're at games every week, sometimes several games a week, and then we, get to congregate at a Miami Hurricanes football game at times as well.
Yeah.
Uh, During the season, it's been a fun season for the Hurricanes. We'll talk a little Hurricanes recruiting and talk about some underrated players, that we've seen. But first, I kind of want to talk about just top performances that you've seen thus far in this high school football season. Who's impressed you this season, Blue?
Well, first of all, I guess the one player that comes to mind is Nick Lanier, who I think I've said it all along that I thought he was the best wide receiver in the country of any class, whether it be 26, 27, 28, or even the incoming freshman at 29. Kid's such a talent, and he's one of those guys that not only dominates, as an offensive threat, but if you need him in the secondary, he could do that. And I think he's perhaps one of the best, most instinctual return guys that we have as well. He's only a 2027 kid. I understand that somewhere along the line he may reclass, although I haven't seen it yet. But he remains, in our 2027 statewide list as the number 2 player behind the linebacker Henderson from Tampa Jesuit. And obviously, as you know, a lot of the kids from IMG Academy come in. So yeah, I think somebody like him has stepped up in a major way this year, and made a huge impact, locally. Obviously Calvin Russell has been a little banged up, so it's given him an opportunity to, step in there and make a major contribution as far as the local kids are concerned. And you got a lot of seniors who are doing what they can. A lot of them are like Jordan Campbell, University of Miami commitment as well, who we've had an opportunity to watch quite a few times. Every time he plays, I think he impresses me more and more just because of the fact that he's got linebacker size, but he's playing more of that, outside linebacker rush end type of kid as an undersized player, but as a hybrid type of player. And then Javion Mallory, the running back from West Boca Raton, who Miami will get for the next cycle. I thought he's done a tremendous job. He's played some top flight competition, has come through really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great names there for sure. Mallory, I have also been very impressed with. Of course, Nick Lanier, I agree with you. I think he's the top wide receiver in Florida, regardless of class, and could be the top wide receiver in the entire country. Tremendous route runner, tremendous hands, just great body control as well. Those are the highlights that we're watching now here on the
Yeah.
South Florida recruiting report. Just an outstanding talent. And I think he's just going to get better and better as his career goes on. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think, well, for me, I really like Julius Jones. He's another top receiver in South Florida that I liked or I've seen this season. I've been really impressed with his route running as well, and just his ability to just get open. I think he's undoubtedly one of the top five receivers in the state of Florida, regardless of class. In my opinion, I think he's just a tremendous talent, and I think he's only going to get better as the season goes on as well.
Yeah. No, I
So
agree.
I think he's one of the top talents that I've seen thus far. I like Jason Lopez as well. I think Jason Lopez is just a talent that I think it is shouldn't be underappreciated. Just what he does on the football field. He helped Chaminade beat American Heritage on a last touchdown for them. So really like what I've seen from him. And Derek Cooper has looked really good as well
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
at running back. There's a ton of talents that I think have been impressive. I do want to say Jamar Denson has kind of looked the part as well. The Troy commit from American Heritage, 2026 receiver. Really like what I saw from him in the past couple of weeks, especially with Brandon Bennett not being able to play for most of the season thus far with a hamstring injury, a
Sure.
Florida State commit. So those are some of the top guys for me, Blue. And Miami, the Miami Hurricanes are a team that are looking into several prospects, including some flip targets as well.
Sure.
They're looking into players like James Johnson, the defensive tackle from Miami Northwestern. Of course, Calvin Russell, who you mentioned earlier, wide receiver who's committed to Syracuse. And then also Justice Fitzpatrick as well, committed to Georgia. Miami's looking into all of those three guys. All of those three could possibly flip to Miami. But of course, Blue, of other players that Miami is also targeting as far as to flip to Miami. But which one of these guys would you say impresses you the most on the football field?
You mean of the players you just mentioned?
Yeah, players I just mentioned, or if there's any other players that you know of that Miami's
Yeah.
targeting that have impressed you on the field.
Well, I'll tell you, a couple of younger kids. Well, obviously they got Amari Stevens, who has kind of made his rounds from St. Thomas to Edison and is now at Chaminade. So,
Yeah,
and he's already a commitment. And to hold on to him for his final 2 years is, going to be, I think, important. Another kid that a lot of people haven't talked much about, and I think he's probably one of the best cornerbacks in the state of Florida for the 2027 class, and we got a chance to watch him last week, is Amari Nugent from American Heritage and Plantation, came from Somerset Academy. He was part of that secondary that was probably as good as any last year for Somerset with the Williams brothers who were at Western, those type of kids like that. I think Tiari Miller is another young
yeah,
kid, big size kid out of Miami Central who came from Homestead, had an opportunity to watch him. A guy who I think is really emerging quickly in the secondary is Zayden Gamble from from St. Thomas.
sure.
As far as looking at the 2027 kids that I think still have some time, to make up their mind. Jalen Jones from MacArthur is another one who was at Western, considered by many as one of the best safety prospects. I'll give you a couple other kids for the 27 class, and then I'll kind of shift over back to 26 because those are kids. These are kids that may have made up their mind, but they've got 2 years. DeMarcus DeRoche, he's a kid who was at Boyd Anderson. He's a defensive end. He's an edge kid. He's at Cardinal Gibbons now. I think he's somebody that, keep your eye on. even though Bryce Williams, the cornerback from Western, is committed to FSU for the 2027 class, I would think that would be a guy over the next, 6, 7, 8 months and into the off season that Miami could, say, hey, listen, we're looking for as many defensive backs as possible. You fit into what we have. The wide receiver, I think, for 2027, we were talking about a bunch of them. What about Jacob Thomas from Flanagan? I think he's somebody special. Also, a running back for 2027 that, could be in Miami's plans is Amos Bradford from West Broward, who had a great freshman year, and he's coming back. Miami's also looking at the real fast kid, the junior from Dillard, Anthony Jennings, who's a wide receiver, so, and then, quarterback wise, you look at Miami, there's really not a lot in South Florida. You got a lot of mid-level kids like James Perrone and obviously Zach Katz, but some of the kids that, we were looking in the 26 class, you were talking about the kid James Johnson, who has done okay. I still think there's, he's got to catch up to the rest of these talented kids, because as well as I do. You play at North Fort Myers, and that's nice, but you'll get a chance to play against an elite kid once every so often. But down here, it could be every week. So you got, and I watched him against New Orleans. I've had an opportunity to watch him in a couple of games this year, as well. And, he's done pretty well. Like you had mentioned, Calvin Russell. I like Calvin. Calvin's got a lot of athleticism. He's a basketball dude. He's a legitimate basketball guy. I like, the fact that Jason Lopez was recruited by Florida State as a basketball player, but let's face it, it's going to be awfully tough. ACC basketball is no joke. This is, so it's going to be, while he's playing football, a lot of these kids are, playing summer basketball and you're getting ready to play fall basketball as well. So, to be realistic, if Jason wants to get on the field in the football team at this level, he's got to have to kind of make a decision and devote, his attention, to football, I think. I'll tell you a kid that Miami committed for the 26 class that I got an opportunity to watch during the summer, and he has just jumped out as Samorian Wingo, a wide receiver from St. Augustine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you what, Marcus, this kid's got the goods.
He's special.
Very special. He's 6'2", 180, plays at a high level, has had an opportunity to play, some pretty good teams along the way. And I thought he's done, outstanding. Some of the other 2026 classes are players that, that Miami still might be in the mix for. Obviously Darian Coleman he's having a okay year. Jones is not really off to a great start, but, I think the best of their football is ahead of them. He's shown already, what he could do. I like the kid Jaden Broadnax. So we got a chance to watch him, defensive back out of West Boca Raton. Love to Darius Hughes, the safety from Northwestern, who, is currently committed to FSU, but that could change. That's a kid who's got it's awfully tough because these kids all hang, with a lot of these kids in South Florida. And, and they would love to stay and play with a lot of these guys, but you can't get everybody. But he would be one because he's an athletic kid. He's somebody that, has an opportunity to be special. The Cameron Wilson kid is a really interesting player, too, because he kind of jumped onto the scene at the end of last year. And our good friend, Coach Caparelli, who used to be at Dr. Phillips, is at Syracuse. And you got to give him credit. Right. He jumped right on him, Marcus, and I thought that was really interesting, and the kid's kind of like shown a lot of love, as far as, that's concerned. I think Miami's got an opportunity to, they got Brody Jennings, from Mandarin, whose brother played here, his dad, may he rest in peace, was somebody I covered at Carroll City back in the day. so you got a lot of kids that are local players, that haven't made up their minds, or that have, and like a Jabari Brady or Denarius Gray, guys like that. I also think that the linemen, Miami's going to start looking at linemen. They've already struck gold, in this last class with
Sure
the
did.
Central Florida kids with Buchanan and Wilkerson and Campbell, and then have come back now with just a crazy elite class. Yeah, I think that Miami's got an opportunity to kind of you know sh- uh, kind of make a lot of these kids kind of wiggle free from some of their commitments, for one reason or another. I love the Quran Maycock kid, who I think is playing at a
Yeah.
pretty decent level now. And yeah, there's a bunch of kids, and the Freddie Wilson from Spruce Creek,
Yeah.
um, who's played well, and a kid on his team. When Miami played against Bethune Cookman, the head coach, his son Damon Woody plays at Spruce Creek as well, and is one of the top players. So there's a lot of guys out there, as you mentioned, to see if we could kind of like shake a few of them free. And but the 26 class, you got you know a better chance now, and then the 27 class, that guys like Jaden Carey from St. Thomas,
Yeah.
guys like Jamari Foreman, who just committed to FSU, a safety type kid who I think is really really good for the future. You got Samari Howard. You got so much talent in South Florida that either hasn't made up their mind yet, or has. But like the Kamari and Young kid from MacArthur, and also Wyatt Smith, who we had an opportunity to see from St. Thomas Aquinas. I think he's a guy too. But you know
Yeah.
what? We could go on talent wise, but
Yeah. For sure.
we'll see what happens. I mean, winning breeds everything, and I'm not the type of guy that thinks, like people ask, and I'm sure they ask you too, is, oh, how much did it mean, to have Miami beat Florida in front of that big crowd? And yeah, it's nice, but remember in the opening game, everyone was gaga over Notre Dame game. Oh man, this is a great atmosphere, and the kids have forgotten about that already. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not the environment as much as the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think a great selling point, and I'm sure you'll agree, is if a kid goes to a game and sees OJ Frederick or Malachi Tony or Joshua Moore and say, hey, Jesus, I just played with them last year, or I played with them or against them last year. And here they are playing a key role on a Power Four team who's number 2 in the country.
Yeah.
So those are probably more telltale recruiting things than just seeing a crowd and people getting excited over a win. I think the opportunity to play, and especially you're seeing now that Miami's going to empty out in the secondary. They're going to empty out on the defensive line. So they're going to hit the portal, but at the same time, as they've shown with their linebackers and bringing along Popo Aguirre and bringing along Wesley Bassett over the years, that, yeah, they're going to go in and get a Mohamed Toure, but at the same time, they're going to have young guys to groom. And
Yeah.
that's the one thing I think separates Miami from a lot of these programs, that, yeah, they go into the portal and get these, quick need kids, but at the same time, they bring guys like Bain, and they bring guys like, those type of players along, to that they've recruited to give these young kids. And I know that, from the quarterback standpoint, you look at some of the quarterbacks that they have who haven't really had an opportunity because they brought in one of the best in the nation last year and arguably one of the top kids in Beck this year. So, and then we all thought, that the kicking woes would start, with the loss of the Borregales clan, over the last 6 years. But Davis has done a great job, and
Yes.
and then they are recruiting for the future as well. So yeah, I think from a recruiting standpoint in South Florida, not just Miami, but any of the colleges that come in here are going to have an opportunity to see a lot of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. South Florida always is a breeding ground for top tier high school football players. I played a highlight of Amari Nugent while he was at
Stud.
Somerset, so that's what the highlights that we were looking at there. And I'm gonna
And
play
you
some.
watched him last week, and you saw, what a impact he made against some really good Miami Central receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is actually a great segue to the underrated players, I think that should get a little bit more love here. And I was going to start with the Miami Central receivers. First off, Brandon Kinsey is a player that I feel is he's committed to Purdue,
Yeah, yeah,
which is a great program.
yeah,
But I feel like he should probably garner more attention than what he has, just because he's just an outstanding talent to me. I think he catches the ball in space well, he gets open, catches the ball in traffic well, and I think and he's very explosive as well with the football in his hand. So I think he's a player that is a little bit underrated, a little bit under the radar. It's weird because he is playing for Miami Central, albeit he did just transfer to Central this season. I think he's a player that deserves a little bit more love. And then his counterpart on the other side, Joshua Joseph, I think is an outstanding talent as well. I'm not sure if Miami Central wins that game against American
yeah,
Heritage if it wasn't for Joshua Joseph, who scored 2 touchdowns in the second half to engineer a comeback for the Rockets. So I think those two guys are definitely players that are under the radar as far as recruiting is concerned. Both of them are 2026s, so this is their final year in high school. So those players should definitely get a little bit more attention than what they've received so far in their high school career, albeit both of them were at smaller schools before Joseph Jackson and Kinsey at LaSalle. Programs that are not getting as much attention as definitely on the national landscape than a Miami Central. Another player from Central I do want to mention is Jaden Ford. Man, this kid's electric. Man, he's committed to FIU. Obviously, great program there. Great program being built over there in Sweetwater. But I think this is a player that probably could get, some power for love just because he's that explosive and he can kind of take it to the distance at any time. Now he's a small guy.
yeah,
Let's just
yeah.
call it what it is. He's a very small player when it comes to football stature, but once he gets the ball in his hands, he can definitely take it the distance at any time. And we saw that last Friday against American Heritage, where he took a kickoff for a touchdown. I
Yeah.
believe he took a kickoff for a touchdown against Edison as well. He is going to take a visit to SMU, so that could be maybe a landing spot for him. If FIU is able to keep him, it would be a great find for them to keep a local talent home as well. I already mentioned Jamar Denson as a top player, and I did want to mention some 2028 guys as well
Okay.
that Miami is looking into. Meshi Dobson, I think, is an
From
outstanding talent.
Plantation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has an upside to be a 4 or 5 star guy. Aiden Johnson, I think, is an outstanding receiver who is now at MacArthur. They're building up a program. Chop over there, a good friend of the program, is building a solid team over there in Hollywood with the Mustangs. And also, Amir Sears is one of the top tier
Yeah. Yeah.
players of 2028. Right now, he's the top defensive back in the entire country for the class out of West Broward. I think he is a top talent that Miami is and will continue to look at for the 2028 class. Of course, Bryson Wright, if we go all the way up to Mandarin High School, Carson Breck's alma mater.
Yeah.
That's another top tier talent in the 28 class. That Miami is definitely going to be looking into. So that, and then lastly, I want to mention is Neiman Lawrence, man. Neiman Lawrence is one of the, I would say, one of the top 2028 quarterbacks of the class, and I'm really impressed with him so far. I think he's going to be a very impressive athlete and quarterback for the next couple of years. Who are
Yeah.
some of your underrated players that should get a
Well,
little bit more love? And before I do that, I am going to, before you go, I am going to say that this next highlight is going to be of Samarian Wingo, outstanding talent out of St. Augustine.
yeah, there's nothing underrated about him, but he's a really,
Right.
really good football talent. If you watch him play, and the thing about you're talking about Ford, he reminds me a lot about Desmond Reed, who's at Pittsburgh and was one of the top players in the
Yeah, that's a good
country
point.
last year as a kick returner, as a line from scrimmage runner out of Miramar, a kid that started out at Western Carolina. So he's a lot like him. But if you watch Zamorian Wingo here in space, he's a big body kid, 6'2.5", 6'3". A guy will make you miss, but at the same time, he's not afraid to go into traffic and mix things up. He gets open, makes it really easy for a quarterback, to play the position. But you're talking about some of the 2028 kids, and there's a lot of kids. There's a kid that we got a chance to watch from Jacksonville Bulls. I think he's going to turn out to be one of the best running backs in the country. His name is Xander Edwards. Kid's a beast. He's a
Yeah.
6'3", 205-pound kid, runs a
Wow.
4.45. A guy, his father used to play in the NFL in San Francisco. But this kid's a big-time kid that came to the Bulls program to play lacrosse. So,
Wow.
yeah, much like the kid Jordan Faison did at Notre Dame from Pinecrest, who is one of their top receivers now. But you look at a guy like them, you had mentioned, a kid like Amir Sears. He's a big time kid. I have a feeling he may end at IMG, within the next year or so, because he's that skilled. He plays on both sides of the ball.
He
He,
does.
he's a big time, and you mentioned him, and I think you're 100% right. Excuse me. I think he's really one of those guys that's going to continue to grow. What about some of the kids like South Florida, like Damian Harvey, who started for Central last year as a defensive end position? He's still there. Wears 97, big time kid. I think Tremone Isaac, who played at Western
Yes.
last year, who's at Chaminade right now, is another guy. I think as long as we're talking about 28 kids, and you had talked about Plantation, they have Zachary Johnson, who is a wide receiver defensive back, who a lot of people are already comparing to Patrick Peterson. And that's
Wow.
pretty, yeah, and this kid's a big time. Where's the number one, only as a freshman last year? I think he had a really, really good, you mentioned Neiman Lawrence. I love Neiman. Neiman's a very intelligent kid, very athletic
Yeah.
player. All he has to do is, continue to get reps at that type of level. I think he's a big time kid. I'll tell you a guy that a lot of people are not, looking, but he's a 2028 kid. He's at Chaminade. His name is Peter Pierre. And
Yes.
this
Good
kid's
mention.
got a shot. He's 6'4". He's 190, right? He's got wide receiver skills, but he's got that tight end body. You
Sure.
know, I think he's got an opportunity over the next couple of years to kind of knock it out of the park, with a lot of these guys. There's an offensive lineman that you got to be on the lookout for from Carroll City. He's Nigel Thigpen. He's
Okay.
6'6", 280. He's one of our friend Mike Tunsil's guys. The kid was at IMG last year. I think he's going to merge into one of the top for the 2028 class. Like I said, 6'6", 280 pounds. You had mentioned Bryson Wright. He's a man amongst boys. We got a chance to watch him, actually in a flag football setting where he kind of,
Yeah.
he kind of lit it up, as well. So you got a lot of 2028 players just starting to emerge. You will be adding obviously to a lot of those kids as well. But yeah, there's so much talent at a lot of these schools, like you had mentioned, like LaSalle, they're coming along. They put out kids every year, and then
Yeah.
obviously they don't all finish there. But you got to give Coach Helder Valier a lot of due for what he's been able to do. We spotlight a lot of these other teams, but West Broward's loaded with talent. We're going to get a
Yeah.
chance to see them. Next Monday night against Cardinal Gibbons in that makeup game, which will be really good.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
playing over at Gibbons. And Gibbons has got some young kids too. We had mentioned the DeRocher kid. They also, have a couple of linemen. I think they're going to be a force in 2A as well. But yeah, you look anywhere. I'll tell you another kid from Miami Edison, Jones, who is he's a wide receiver, he's a DB. He lit it up against Central. I think he's really good as well. I think he came over from Miami Jackson too, and it kind of makes you think if our good friend would have stayed over at Jackson, he was building something really, really special over there, because you look at the quarterback at West Broward, Mincy, he was over there. They have a
Yeah.
lineman. Yeah, Max Edwards was getting a lot of the kids, and building a program there. Unfortunately, Jackson, Story program has fallen on hard times, and they had
Yeah.
to forfeit their game this week against Miami Northwestern.
Do you know why they
They just
forfeit?
don't have enough, manpower to go up against a team like Northwestern, and
Oh,
that's the
wow.
reason why. Yeah, their numbers are low. I think in the high 20s, maybe middle 20s. See, somebody like Jeff Bertani manages 20-something kids because he's
Yeah.
used to it. If you're not used to having 22 kids, that means a lot of these kids have to go both ways.
Right.
But that's the reason why I'm not a big advocate of it. You play the game, whatever happens, you run the clock, but you're taking a lot of things away from both teams.
Yeah.
The Northwestern kids, yeah, we know the varsity kids don't really need that type of play, but there's a lot of underclassmen, a lot of young sophomores and juniors that don't get enough chance to play. Those are kids as well, but I think that's the reason why. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Definitely unfortunate to hear. It's really kind of weird to hear that the Soul
Yeah.
Bowl won't be played this year. I mean, it's a game as well as
Oh yeah.
anybody, just how big of a game that used to be. Sometimes they used to play that at the Orange Bowl. Regular high school game was played at the Orange Bowl just because it just had so many fans that kind of wanted to get to it. So unfortunate to see that program where it is. Hopefully, it gets built back up soon, because that's definitely one of the best or premier games of the South Florida high school football season. Now I feel like the new Soul Bowl is now Miami Central versus Miami Northwestern.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, because that is a game that year after year it's like a classic type of ball game. You could always throw the records out of the window if one team is down. That's always going to be a great game. So hopefully, yeah, Jackson turns things around.
yeah. I hope so.
Yeah. All right, Blue, great stuff from you as always. I think we could probably talk all day about recruits, like we
Yeah.
always do.
Yeah.
Especially with me and my new role here as a South Florida recruiting reporter for On Three Rivals. Hopefully, we'll get you back on soon
Sure.
and
Sure.
talk a little bit more South Florida recruiting.
Good stuff. Well, best of luck with this. Yeah, I know you work extremely hard, and the people listening should understand that the very fact that you're 4 or 5 feet away from a lot of these kids every Thursday and Friday is a testament to what you do. And there's a lot of people out there that just watch film and
Yeah,
then claim to be the source, but if you're really into recruiting, you got to understand that there's more to it than making tackles or throwing balls. There's a lot of things from a standpoint that colleges look at that from talking to the kids. Character is huge, and that you can't tell from sitting at home and watching film.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be at a high school game this week just because that is what we do. So next time, Blue, we'll talk a little bit more high school football, and that is something that we love here, and we'll continue to report on it. Larry Blustein, you can find his stuff on Prep Red Zone Florida. Also follow him on Twitter as well. Thanks again for joining me today, Blue.
Thanks anytime, Marcus.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for the South Florida Recruiting Report. Until the next episode.